Hello. Today I am with comrade from Norway, author of the YouTube channel Vox Populi Spartacus. Hello.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Wait, I will finish something. So, firstly, I would like to congratulate you. I watched one of your videos about Noam Chomsky, where you criticize Chomsky. I also made a video in Polish language, I think 2 months ago, about Chomsky. And after this video, many people attacked me. And how dare you attack Chomsky? Chomsky is the guru, he is the most important person in the world, most important critic of capitalism. And for me, I critique Chomsky because I am a worker in emigration, and I am poor. I made my video in bathroom, as you see, because I don't have a big apartment. I am not invited to the bourgeois media. I am not invited to the university to speak about. I am not represent the mainstream Marxism. So when you criticize Chomsky, it was very good. Could you summarize something which you said in this video?
So, well, the base of my argument was that his argument had no basis. And that is because he does not, and this is something that I've found quite common with Chomsky, but especially in that one talk, and that is that he does not cite sources. And he does not cite where these claims come from. Like, okay, Lenin and the Bolsheviks abolished Soviet democracy. They banned the workers' councils and the factories. This is something that he says in the talk. And here I'm like, well, where the hell did you get this from? The Bolsheviks were one of the first groups in Russia to actually establish workers' councils in the first place. Why would they suddenly abolish them once they came to power? It does not really make much sense. And yeah, it was pretty hard to conclusively have any arguments of my own against Chomsky. It was mainly just saying that he is wrong, simply because there's no reason for me to believe him or to not believe him. It's the same thing. Okay. It's the same thing as to say, okay, God exists. Well, why should I believe in God when you have no evidence or any proof of that whatsoever? And it's pretty much the same case with Chomsky, in my opinion.
Okay, so you live in Norway. Could you tell something about Norway? Because in Poland, Norway is very strategic country for two reasons. One of the reason is important for Polish left because one of the Polish party, which is now in parliament, petty organization, it is in coalition left in parliament, but this petty party is named Razem, together in English. And the leader of this party, he was born in Denmark. And he was born in Denmark. I don't know, he has family there who emigrated, I don't know. But first, he was there in kindergarten in Denmark after he returned Poland. So I don't know, it is the reason or something other, but he came back to Poland and started to talk that the party together, they want to build the socialism like in Scandinavian style. They changed because before this he was the member of the organization named Young Socialist. They used the flag with the red flag, and it was a traditional social democratic party, social liberal, but it was the tradition of the left. now after this they changed the color. Now it's not red, now it's violet. Now it's not socialism, now it is socialism, no, Scandinavian style socialism, stuff like this. And I want to know if you are happy to live in socialist country. And second thing, why Norway is important, it is many Poles emigrated in Norway. My brother, he worked in the building industry. He worked in Sweden 6 months, but also he know people who were in Norway, and also many people think about going to Norway. So tell something. What is the life in Norway?
Well, it is a very common misconception that the Scandinavian countries of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark are socialist. But, I think both you and I know that that is completely bullshit. None of these countries are socialist. They are social democratic, which means that they are a capitalist country with a welfare state. And a welfare state is just this network of things that benefit the common person, like social safety nets or free healthcare and stuff like that. That's a welfare state. And compared to a place like America, for example, it is very common for Americans, especially, to see our countries as socialist because they are so drastically different from the USA, which is way more hardline capitalist. But that does not necessarily mean that Norway is any less capitalist, because what is social democracy in itself? Well, social democracy, in my opinion, is a collection of concessions given by the state to the workers. For example, okay, let's increase wages so that the workers don't overthrow us. So if anything, it is just a different type of capitalist strategy to try and stop the workers from rioting, from starting revolutions and stuff like that. And but yeah, of course, that does not mean that social democracy is necessarily a bad thing compared to hardline capitalism like the USA. In my opinion, of course, it is way much better, but better does not mean good. And it certainly does not mean socialism. It is very, very far from that in practice. There are huge wealth inequalities in Norway. There is a huge inequality between the rich and the poor, and that is becoming more of a drastic issue, because previously under social democratic administrations, it was very common. It was way more common for even Norwegians to see Norway as a socialist country, because the Labour Party basically dominated politics for almost the entire later half of the entire 20th century. But after a while, in the 80s and in the 90s, a lot more right-wing politicians came to power, and the welfare state was being slowly but surely cut down. And today, you can very much see that the wealth inequality is rising, that this so-called middle class is becoming smaller, that there are becoming more and more poor people, and that there are becoming slightly more rich people, but mainly that these rich people are becoming more and more rich, while the poor are becoming more and more poor. So social democracy really does not solve any of the problems that capitalism has created. It is simply another type of strategy, or I would say a more smart strategy from the capitalists' perspective, to try and soothe the working class of Norway, to try and stop us from organizing and other things like that. So yeah, I don't know how well that answered your question, but yeah.
Yes, I would like that. I'm living in France, and in France also we can say that it existed before welfare state. It was created in 1945, when the new government of the coalition government after Second World War, there was 4 ministers from the French Communist Party. And one of these minister, Maurice Torres, he was the leader of this French Communist Party, but also he was responsible for the for the welfare questions. It's him who created Securite Sociale, something which give money to the people without work, question of hospitals and stuff. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, a little before, I think that it's what started in the time of the Mitterrand in 1980s, the French bourgeoisie start to destroy this welfare state. It was for 40 years they destroy. Now Macron he accelerated this process. So, for example, 2 years ago we have a big movement here, Yellow Vest movement, against this destruction of the social service. But and I think, and everybody in the French left think that. With Macron and second, when we will be elected second time, he will destroy everything because it is his destroy this welfare state which existed in France before. What is your how you see the future of Norway welfare state?
Well, currently the welfare state is being cut down, and like I said, it has been slowly but surely cut down over the years. Usually from a center right wing coalition administration over Norway. Currently, the prime minister is Erna Solberg, is her name, and she is she is the leader of the conservative party of Norway. And they are, hell bent on, even during coronavirus, even during the pandemic, they're still hell bent on privatization and essentially just making things way easier for corporations to take over our country. For example, I would say that she is going to lose the next election because there is an election at the end of this year, September 2021. There is an election. And I'm pretty sure that she is going to lose because she has actually lost the support of the most far right party in Norway, the Progress Party, quite an ironic name, Progress Party, which they're incredibly hell bent on privatization and free market and so on and so forth. But yeah, no. So I think it's going to. I think the administration is going to go back to Labour now, that we're going to have a Labour prime minister. But the thing is that even when the Labour Party is in power, like in 2007, even when the Social Democrats were in power, there was still privatization happening. The welfare state continued to become smaller and smaller and less and less efficient, less and less just good for society, and people. It could feel it, and that is why there in the last years has been quite a big surge in the far left here in Norway. Anyone from socialists to Bolshevik to and so a lot more people today than back then can see through the lies of the Norwegian Labour Party because they really aren't trying to prevent privatization. All they're really doing is trying to take power. And when they probably take power, at the end of this year, privatization is not going to stop, and the welfare state will eventually be lost if there's nothing we do about it before that time happens. So, yeah, it's not looking great.
Okay, could you say something about your organization, your activity, and also about the left, extreme left, far left in Norway?
So the far left in Norway, like in most countries, is very heavily split, of course, between different ideologies and tendencies. And so mainly you have the Red Party, you have the Socialist Left Party, you have an organization, a Maoist organization called Serve the People, and you also have the Communist Party of Norway. So basically, four different socialist parties in Norway, or not parties, but organizations and parties. but the one that I'm a member of the Red Youth. So that's the youth organization of the Red Party. And I would say that the Red Youth is more radical than the Mother Party, because the Mother Party has increasingly over the years become more reformist, a little bit more bourgeois, less action, more talking, you know what I mean? And so the Red Youth has also been hurt by this. There is a bureaucracy in the Red Youth and the Red Party. But I would say that still the Red Youth is more of a revolutionary movement than the Mother Party. Not only am I a member of Red Youth, I'm also a member of the International Marxist Tendency, which is a international organization in many different countries, everywhere from Britain to Pakistan to the United States to South Africa, and which is a Trotskyist international started by Alan Woods and Ted Grant, which you have heard of, I'm sure. And what we really do, I think we are at like 3,000 to 4,000 members internationally, something like that. And I mean, what we mainly do, we make websites, we publish news, we publish articles, there's not much, direct action that can be done during the pandemic itself. So what we're trying to do, is of course raise awareness, raise class consciousness amongst the population. But other than that, there's not really that much else to be done. Something that was kind of scary, though, was that one man in our Pakistani section of our organization, he was actually arrested and he was kidnapped by the secret police in Pakistan, the religious police in Pakistan, and we heard nothing from him. Nothing from him in like a month. But luckily, he was safe and sound after a while, and so he's back with his family now. But yeah, and so the IMT, International Marxist Tendency, or at least according to Pakistan, we are seen as a threat, even though what we mainly do is post media and try to raise awareness. But yeah, those are the two organizations I'm mainly a member of: IMT and Red Youth.
I think that I was seeing the petition about this guy from Pakistan. It was 1 month or 2 months ago. Very often when I see the petition in the leftist page, I see automatically, because if it is come from the leftists, I sign. So have you ever been in Paris?
No, I sadly have not had the chance of visiting France yet, but yeah, no.
Because I think the capital of the world Trotskyism is Paris. Here there are many Trotskyist organizations. So I can present you that there are the biggest party is the Lutte Ouvrière. Lutte Ouvrière is the workers' fight. And there are also other organizations which name is New Anti-Capitalist Party. It is the federation of many Trotskyist tendencies. You can find them there, the United Secretary and also the Morenists from the Latin America. There is also the party which is the strict continuation of the Four International in the time when the son of Trotsky was created for International. Its name is Lambertist. Lambert was the leader of this party. So there are three. There were, now is only the big is only Lutte Ouvrière, but there are also many other smaller organizations of Trotskyists. There are the CWI. They make the journal L'Égalité. There are two organizations connected to your international. One of them are make the journal La Révolte, other La Riposte. I don't know what is the difference, but one of these organizations is they I think that they are the member of the party of Jean-Luc Mélenchon and other the French Communist Party. But it was information from 3 or 4 years ago when I was very active there. Now I am not living in Paris. I am living in region Parisian, but I'm not now in all this petty demonstration. But I have all collection of the leaflets, journals, newspapers. I think that we can find in only in Paris 15 circles of different Trotskyist organization. And my question for you is why they are and they hate each other.
And that is well, like on the left in general, it is incredibly split over usually very small issues. But usually when it comes to Trotskyism, there is one big debate. It isn't, of course, the one that everyone cares the most about, but there's one thing that divides Trotskyists the most, and that is the question of a strategy called entryism. And entryism just means that your organization joins a larger organization to try and convert members from the inside, and or alternatively trying to take over the party slowly and kick out the reformists, kick out the right wing of that party. For example, and this is a practice debate in politics, and that is, the Labour Party, because that is the biggest party of the workers in Britain, even though, of course, it doesn't represent their wishes at all times. But yeah. And so you have other Trotskyists which are against entryism, and these groups split off, and then they split off, and then you have a bunch of incredibly small splits, and usually over very small issues. But yeah, that one entryism, that is probably the biggest factor to why all these splits have occurred.
Do you know Lionel Jospin?
I know.
Lionel Jospin.
No, I don't think so.
He was the prime minister of France in the end of the 19th. It was him who made this 35 day hour week. Yes, 35. And he was the leader of the French Socialist Party. But also he was the member of Lambertist. He was they make entrism in Socialist Party, and because he was smart and no theory, and he became leader of the party, not only leader of the Trotskyist fraction, but leader of the party. And after he became the prime minister of France. For example, he decided to support the bombardment of Yugoslavia in 1999. But it is other discussion. But have you heard about L'Ouvrier? Because for me it is I collaborated a little with L'Ouvrier, and I think that this organization is very interesting because I know very well Trotskyist movement, because me personally, I was a member of 4 different Trotskyist organizations many years ago. But maybe I will present. I was a member of the organization connected with Tony Cliff, and it was in 1997. So, after it was United Secretary of 4th International, International Communist League, known like the Spartacus, and also my last organization, which I was member, it was Committee for the Workers International, the TAFIS.
Yeah, the CWI. That's where the IMT split off from. Yeah.
Yes.
The IMT split from the CWI.
Yes. I know this, but. All this organization, which I said, it was not, in my opinion, workers' organization. They are more interesting in the in the propaganda, in the leftist circle, most of them petit bourgeois, the people who are the member of the social democratic parties or the left, but not workers. And Lutte Ouvrière is different organization because they continue this old tradition, they building the workers' party. They are very how to say, closed organization. It's difficult to be member of this because they are not participate very active in political life in France. Of course, they present their candidate to the election presidential, and 2 times Arlette Laguerre have scored more than 5% in France. It's very, very big, 5% vote for the, and when you combine all these radical leftist candidate, it is with Mélenchon, it is more than 20%. So it was forced. And it is Workers' Party, the Lutte Ouvrière. So do you know a little bit about this, or it's only French organization and nobody knows Lutte Ouvrière outside the France?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've heard of that organization before, actually, but that does sound interesting. 5%. That, I mean, that would equate to like half of Norway. So, I mean, yeah, that does sound surprisingly big.
Yes, but this election, it is, I can say that it is not the most important activity of this party.
No,
The most important activity they want to. It is what they say. I don't know if it is true or not. But they say that they want to create the workers' organization in the factories, and also they made all this work propaganda. They make many books of Trotsky. They have organized one time a year a very big meeting in the forest. It's 3 days. It's named Fête Lutte Ouvrière. Every day, every time there are many, I don't know, 50,000 people who came there. So it is very big, but it's smaller one than the Fête de l'Humanité. Fête l'Humanité, it is 500,000 people whu go there. But Fête l'Humanité, it is you have 10% politic, and 90% it is concert, drunk, young people who go there, drunk alcohol, but it is massive, you know, 500,000 people came to Fête l'Humanité every year. I think that it is the biggest thing like this in Europe.
Wow.
But only, you know, if you want to know more about French Trotskyists, I think that you have to learn French, because they are this is the French exception, that they don't want to speak about in English. So
yeah, no, not a lot of French people like speaking English. That's true.
But I can resume that 6 times it was Arlette Laguerre which presents herself in the election. And now in 2012 and 2017, it is Nathalie Arthaud, the new leader, which I think that she will be present Anko 4 times, because it was 6 for Arlette, so now 6 for Nathalie Arthaud. But okay, what I forget what I wanted to ask you. Maybe you won't ask me something. But I will wait. I will search what I sent you. Yes. What is your position about now coronavirus and this difference, a big difference between the capitalist countries like USA, like Eastern Europe, like other capitalist countries in the third world, and the countries which I consider that this is the all the time countries with the socialist base. Of course, the people who ruling in this country, like Vietnam or Cuba, maybe it is not the people like Lenin or Che Guevara, who you see him, who wanted to export revolution and make the, but I consider this country all the time like the country socialist, which I want to defend when there are the aggression of imperialism, the war, or the sanction, or stuff like this. And now we see all this difference that in Vietnam you have only 35 people who died in COVID, and in Poland every day 500 people died. So for me it is big, it is great tragedy, but also it is big victory of the socialism in Vietnam, socialist Cuba, and also I am proud of this example of the Cuban medicines who go to all the world to give the healthcare for free. And it is better propaganda for the socialist society than, I don't know, 100 books about. So what is your opinion about these countries?
Well, Cuba, for example, I would say that that Cuba is, by definition, a socialist country. I do recognize Cuba as socialist, but it is still something that we Trotskyists call a deformed worker state, which I think Cuba is. But what I think is interesting is that Cuba is the last of the deformed worker states, because I believe that countries like China have devolved so far that they've essentially just embraced capitalism completely, that there is that there is almost nothing left of socialism, in my opinion. But Cuba still has a lot of that left, and I believe that Cuba is it isn't perfect socialism, quote unquote, but it is the closest we have to socialism today. And so, yes, I am also very proud that Cuba sends doctors all over the world to Italy, for example, to help people that are struggling with the coronavirus. These countries have also done a lot better to fight against COVID. But that is I think that's something that we can see in most countries where you have things like social safety nets, these social democratic concessions in general, like Norway. Norway does a lot better than a country like the USA, for example. But at the same time, we also have countries like New Zealand, which have almost completely eradicated coronavirus completely out of life. They don't have lockdown. They don't have anything. They've essentially completely gotten rid of coronavirus. And Vietnam, like you said, have also done a very good job of fighting the pandemic. And yes, I of course I agree that socialism would tackle this a lot better, because you would have countries cooperating. There would be no keeping secrets from each other. Oh no, we can't give this information to China to help them fight the pandemic, because that's gonna help them fight us. For example, something like that. If all countries were socialist today and we were facing this pandemic, then we would be helping each other. There would be no Bolivia is too poor to fight the pandemic. It would be the entire world is sending aid to Bolivia to help them fight the pandemic. And so yeah, socialism would do a lot better. And during the pandemic, the problems of capitalism have been shown more than ever. Even though these problems have existed for the last centuries, a lot more people are more aware of these problems now than before. And you can see this with the political radicalization all over the world, especially towards the left and towards socialism. And so, that is oftentimes what does happen, during these types of revolutionary situations, like a huge crash or something, people are finally finding out that, oh shit, this actually, politics actually has something to do with my life. It actually has something. It can bring both negative and positive effects, and so people become a lot more aware during times like this, during a pandemic. But yeah, no, it is a pretty wide discussion. It's kind of hard to find a place to begin. But yeah, no, what I would say is that, of course, socialism would fight off the coronavirus pandemic a lot more efficiently than the world currently does. There would be no competition to see who can develop the vaccines faster. It wouldn't be no competition to, yes, we're going to profit as much as possible from the vaccines. It would be, let's create one world vaccine which all scientists from all over the world, cooperate upon, and then this vaccine will be distributed to where it is needed the most. And so socialism would fight off this pandemic a lot better. And I honestly do think that the pandemic would be over by 2021 if the whole world was socialist. I don't think the pandemic would last up until today if it hadn't been for how incredibly inefficient capitalism is to deal with these huge problems.
Okay, now I would like to ask you about your strategy or Trotsky strategy to the Western countries, because I am the reader of the Seed Internet in Defense of Marxism. I know the YouTube channel Socialist Appeal and other. You have two YouTube channels, and I remember that your organization in Britain was very active in supporting the Jeremy Corbyn and all this fight in Labour Party. Other Trotskyist organization in USA was very active in supporting Bernie Sanders 2 times, 2016, 2020. And also I remember that all left in Europe supported the Syriza and Tsipras in the time of election and in the time of referendum. And we have 3 examples that big hope for the leftists, for the extreme leftists, because Syriza was the coalition of the Trotskyist group, communist group. I don't know. It was 10 coalition of 10 groups, and in the finish, everything collapsed. Bernie Sanders, he supported Biden. Corbyn, he gave up without fight, and now all these leftists from Labour Party are pushed away. And also Syriza is compromission total. They make this neoliberal reform. Now no, because they lose power, but they made this. They continue this neoliberal strategy promoted by the Commission of Europe. And what do you think that after these 3 mistakes, it's need the change strategy or continue?
Well, first of all, there's a big difference between Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders. And the biggest difference is that Bernie Sanders, he sits on a bourgeois platform, the Democratic Party, which is a completely right-wing party. However, Jeremy Corbyn was at the time the head of a party, the Labour Party, which has a proletarian basis. This does not mean that the party itself is socialist, but it means that the target audience, if I'm going to use marketing terms, of the Labour Party, are working class people. And so my organization, the IMT, never supported Bernie Sanders simply because he refused to step away from the Democratic Party. If he had run on, for example, the Democratic Socialists of America or any other independent working class party, then we would support his campaign. But we didn't. And after Bernie Sanders, like you said, he said that voters who wanted to vote for me, you must go and vote for Joe Biden. That's what he said. After that, our organization received 100 emails of former Bernie Sanders supporters who were like, oh shit, you're right. And so a lot of people in America started to join our organization or the section of our organization because they realized that Bernie Sanders was not going to give them the revolution that they wanted. But that's also to say the same for Corbyn. He lost the election by pretty much a landslide almost against the conservative reactionaries, and we did support Corbyn. Of course we did. However, that does not mean that Corbyn reflects our ideology perfectly. Not even close. He is he is very similar to Bernie Sanders in that way. He's more of a democratic socialist, whatever that means. He is not a Bolshevik, he's not a Trotskyist or anything like that. But the reason that we did support him was because, one, he had a working class basis. Two, he was a lot more progressive than the previous Labour Party leaders, and he was actually prepared to want to implement policies that helped people, expand the NHS and stop privatization from happening first and foremost. And so, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn, I look positively to him, and the IMT still does support people like Corbyn, but that does not mean that Corbyn reflects our ideology itself. It's simply, Jeremy Corbyn is better than the other options. That's basically our opinion. And because if he was still the leader of the Labour Party, he is not anymore, but if he was, he still would have a chance of implementing very, very good leftist reforms in Britain that would have helped a lot of people. It's not like we're going to be fighting against higher minimum wage, shorter work hours. It's not like we're going to be fighting against that simply because we want a revolution. That'd be pretty silly in my opinion. And so these reforms would of course be beneficial, but that does not mean that they are a revolution. But it is quite an interesting development.
Yes, but I would like to know how you see this revolution will came to the Western countries. I said something about Che Guevara. There is a legend, I don't know if it is true or not, that one time when Che Guevara meet Fidel Castro in Mexico, they speak together 24 hours, and Fidel Castro said, go with us to Cuba, we will do this, and after it will be this. So he make plan. Not this plan worked because the beginning of the Cuban Revolution, it was catastrophe, but after they won. So he gave a plan for the revolution, and I want to know what is your plan to the next 5 years, 10 years.
Well, I don't have a very specific plan, but what I could say is that the revolution is definitely not going to start in Norway. I seriously doubt that my country will be the first one. My job for today is simply to spread awareness, spread consciousness, make people read Marxist books, educate themselves a little bit more. And I think that the next big revolution will happen in a Latin American country, a country like Bolivia or Brazil or Colombia or something like that, because these countries, as we've seen the past few years, have had a lot of potential. They've had huge mass mobilizations and movements against like corruption and dictators and right-wing neoliberal policies and stuff like that. In Chile, for example, we saw that last year. But what would be like the strategy of the IMT? Would, like I said, we are an entryist organization. So all of our different sections, almost all of them, are affiliated with a bigger, less radical party. For example, in France, our French comrades are members of the IMT, but they're also members of I have no clue how to pronounce the name of this party.
France Insoumise.
I don't remember what they're called. And yeah, give me a few seconds here.
France Insoumise or France Communist Parti Communist France.
It's a very big party. They have like orange. They use a lot of orange. What are they called?
Yes, it's France Insoumise. Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
Yeah, La France Insoumise. That's where most of our comrades are members of, and that does, of course, not mean that this party is a Bolshevik party or anything like that. But the main goal of our French comrades, is to infiltrate the party, and try to make more and more people join our cause, because we can point at the mother party and say like, hey, reform is not gonna bring about the revolution. The things that, the disparity that you see on the streets is not going to end just because La France Insoumise is in power. That's not going to change a lot that much. And so we're trying to build, a basis. And this is something that was very, very successful in the British Labour Party. And in the Labour Party, excuse me, and like I said, we have this called the Militant, which at the time was steadily growing and growing. And I believe at one point the Militant had like 100,000 members or something pretty huge like that. But the problem that was faced there was that the Labour Party started to actively attack the Militant. Members were expelled. People lost the jobs that they had in the party, their authority, their membership and stuff like that. But let's say that did not happen. Let's say that the Militant continued, right? And so what the Militant would seek to do would, of course, try to get a majority of supporters in the Labour Party. And then we would try to, to take leadership of the party and face it towards a socialist direction. And then we would proceed to expel the right wing of the party. We would expel the Social Democrats. We would expel the Reformists, get rid of them entirely, and create a really, really big and strong socialist party, which could, in theory, bring about revolution. And the Militant, which was started before the IMT, was the closest we ever had to that, or at least in Britain, that was the closest. But yeah, no, that is generally the strategy. I can't, of course, I can't look into the future and see exactly what will happen, but that's sort of how I think things will go.
Okay, my channel is not very popular, but there are people who watch now live, and she asked a question. Firstly, she commented. She made comment. I will read this comment, but after is question for you. Countries such as Cuba and New Zealand have a greater chance of isolating and controlling borders, zero immigration traffic. How does it compare to parts of Central Europe? And now is question: do you support inheritance law in Norway?
Okay, so the first question, it is kind of hard for me to answer. I'm not an expert on COVID-19, and I'm certainly not an expert on Central European countries like Germany or Austria or Poland or Czechia. But of course, Hannah, you are correct. Kind of islands like Cuba and New Zealand, of course, have a way easier basis for stopping the pandemic. But I don't know quite exactly what New Zealand did. But the COVID-19 pandemic had reached New Zealand. There were like a couple of thousands of cases. So it wasn't like it never touched New Zealand. There was COVID in New Zealand, but quite efficiently over the next few months, COVID cases dropped. And at one point, there were no one infected with COVID. So I don't really know an answer to that. I don't know exactly what New Zealand did. But I know that a lot of countries in the world are trying to replicate this formula of trying to fight off the pandemic. I don't know quite exactly how, but in some way or another they did. But yeah, no, it is of course unfair of me to put Cuba next to Germany. That is, I agree that would be quite unfair. Yeah. So the next question: do you support inheritance law in Norway? No, I do not. And inheritance law means that you inherit a lot of money from inherit money from your parents when your parents die or another family member dies. And I'm very much against inheritance law because, I mean, that's even worse than so-called self-made bourgeoisie. That's just, and that is essentially just a modern aristocracy if you think about it, because you're born on wealth. Suddenly, like, you did nothing to work for it. You did nothing to even contribute to the creation of that wealth at all. Suddenly you're just born with wealth. So like, what's the, why should someone be born with wealth while others are not born with any wealth whatsoever, you know? And so, yes, I am, of course, very, very much against inheritance law in my country. And luckily, it doesn't. You don't have to be very radical in Norway to be against inheritance law. A lot of people in Norway are against inheritance. So yeah.
Yes, but you said that you think that there will be revolution in Bolivia, but
well, no, not Bolivia specifically, but a Latin American country. Just because, yeah, just because you know, in the last years we had something called the Pink Tide, where these democratic socialists either came to power or started big movements, you know, like Hugo Chavez, Evo Morales, and all of these sorts of big sort of populist socialist characters start to gain a lot of traction. And after you had this, I don't know what it's called, but after the Pink Tide, you have like the reactionary version of that, where a lot of neoliberals came to power in Chile, for example, and of course with Bolsonaro in Brazil. And so after these very, very reactionary takeovers, you have had huge movements. Like I said, in Chile, you had the upwards of 1 million people demonstrating in Santiago, and that is a huge development. And that, in my opinion, that shows a lot of potential. And it shows potential that we don't really see in many other countries. We see that in countries like France, for example. That I agree with. For example, with the Yellow Vests movement was enormous, and it even spread to a couple other countries like Belgium, I believe. But yeah, so there is potential there is, of course, potential in all countries, but I believe that Latin America has the most potential, or at least currently. That's what I think, that Latin America has the most potential.
And it's Norway biggest problem is heredity, classes, and nepotism. The Labour Party is the same as the Høyre party. The last party Congress was proved by the drug law.
Yeah. You are very much correct. The Labour Party in Norway has become less left-wing than it already was. And like I said, you know, they, even during the Labour Party's administration, they started to commit to privatizations and stuff like that. They really stopped being social democrats altogether. And now the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, which, you know, are the biggest parties on the left and the right, are basically the same thing. You know, it doesn't really, you don't really see an effect in real life, a real difference whatsoever if either of them are in power. And so, yeah, no, I agree. And what Han is referring to at the end there is that in Norway we have had a bill that could have passed for a drug reform. So a slight drug like decriminalization, like you shouldn't be put in prison if you're addicted to drugs or something like that. And the Labour Party, you know, voted against this, which, you know, voting against something like that is quite anti-worker to be like, yes, no, the drugs that people are taking because of their economical issues, that they should be put in prison for that. You know, it's quite ridiculous. And so yeah, no, the Labour Party has lost a lot of popularity in the last years because they are almost the exact same as the Conservative Party. Yeah.
What do you think about the Polish state after Second World War?
The Polish state, the People's Republic, I think it was called.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know much about Poland specifically. Actually, I know more about East Germany than I do about Poland in the Cold War. I don't know. I know that surprisingly enough, the end of the People's Republic was, brought by a labor union. The what were they called? The
Solidarność.
Yeah, the Solidarity. Yeah. And so it was quite an interesting way for Poland to end and eventually become, a proto-fascist state like today, which is, quite tragic, really. Yeah, no, I don't know really that much about the PPR.
Okay. So in my opinion, the Poland after Second World War until 1956 was a country who built socialism. After 1956, they starting to make system that we will not go toward socialism. We will have a little like China, that market socialism. It started in the 1970s with leader of Gierek. He was one of the founder of the market socialism in Eastern Europe. He started to take a big credit from the Western banks, technologies, and Deng Xiaoping, when he think about the reform of China, he looked for Poland, how Poland is working, and he copied this market socialism to China. But before 1956, in my opinion, there are the processes which was the building of socialism. And now it is the theoretical question, because in the book of Trotsky, there is the dogma that USSR in the ruling by Stalin is against the exporting socialism. But the existence of these countries like GDR, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and other, for me, it is proof that the socialism was exported.
I will honestly say that I don't agree with that, because the thing is that after World War II, of course, these countries were liberated from Nazi Germany. Of course, I'm not denying that. But at the same time, these countries, in my opinion, would have created a lot more practical of a socialism, a lot more socialist socialism, if that makes any sense. If these countries, actually had movements of themselves, had proper revolutions, and instead of just a Soviet power just occupying their country and then slowly transforming into the locals' administration rather than a military occupation. And so I don't really see that much of an exporting of a revolution. And it did not last very much for a very long time either. Nor did these countries have a big success in much of a way. For example, you have multiple revolutions in Czechia, in Hungary, like you said, in Poland. And you need to ask the question of, why did these revolutions start in the first place? Why would such a huge part of the population suddenly turn against socialism? And what they didn't necessarily go against socialism. The leaders of these movements certainly did go against socialism, but the common man who was demonstrating on the streets, in my opinion, he was fighting against bureaucratization. He was fighting against the fact that he had not gotten the democratic rights that he was promised by socialism. You can see this, for example, by like you said, why did Poland suddenly start experimenting with market socialism after 1956? Well, because the bureaucracy had no one to stop them. The people couldn't just simply go up to the leader of Poland and say, "Hey, you can't start privatizing. You can't start this Yugoslavia, China-like economic policy." There was nothing to stop them at all. And I say this about China too. There was essentially nothing stopping Deng Xiaoping from bringing capitalism back to China after it had been eradicated from the Kuomintang. And so, in my opinion, it is quite clear that these bureaucracies eventually lead to a market economy. For example, we see that in Vietnam too. After the death of Ho Chi Minh, just like in China, you have the bureaucracy continuing to privatize, continuing to create this market socialism, which they call it. And this process has actually already started in Cuba. It's definitely not come as far as in Vietnam or China or Poland at the time. But even this process of the socialist market economy has started in Cuba. And to me, that is very alarming, because like, how can you trust this so-called communist party when in fact all they've been doing in these countries is create their own version of capitalism, which is, I guess, for the people, for the workers, when in reality it really is not that different from, the social democracy or state capitalism of my country, of Norway, for example. And so, I mean, yeah.
And do you think that the chance of your country, Norway, it is because you are very close to the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc, or because, for example, Spain or countries in Africa, in Latin America, the bourgeoisie in these countries didn't build the welfare state. I think that in Europe, when we see that the countries which are close with Soviet Union or have borders with Soviet Union, Norway have border with Soviet Union. So it was obvious that you have to build welfare because communist ideology is powerful, and this example. And in the countries which was very far from Soviet Union, bourgeoisie there didn't need to have do this.
I understand what you're saying, but I can't speak for all countries, of course. But in Norway, for example, the creation of social democracy really didn't, or it had actually started before World War II, but it didn't really kick off until after World War II. But the thing is that I really don't think the Labour Party felt very pressured to create a welfare state because of the Soviet Union, because the Labour Party were in power at the time when Norway joined NATO, for example. And Norway was very, very close to the United States, even though our bourgeoisie started to build a welfare state. And so it isn't very easy to say or analyze exactly why a bourgeoisie of one country starts building a welfare state and another doesn't. I think one thing would be the level of class and political consciousness. For example, there would be more politically conscious people in Norway at the time than in an African country like Angola, for example, because you simply did not have the education to quite wrap your head around what politics meant and what that was. And so I think that countries with a more broadly educated population of people will eventually start to put in these reforms of welfare state and stuff like that. And I really don't think that my country of Norway or Sweden felt particularly pressured by the Soviet Union, because even Finland is a social democracy, and Finland started to build their own welfare state. And they were, of course, threatened by the Soviet Union, but they certainly didn't want to become a part of the Soviet Union or or fall under the Soviet Union. And so, in my opinion, that theory doesn't really make much sense, because if that was the case, then why wouldn't Turkey start doing the same? Why wouldn't Iran start doing the same thing? And so, yeah, no, I don't think the geographical position of Norway had that much to do with the creation of the welfare state. It was more of another.
Wait. When you look at the Iran, we have there in 1950s the guy which is named Mossadegh. He was the leftist guy. He nationalized the oil company, and he started to build an economy, make reform, which was the copy the Soviet Union, and it is why the CIA make putsch in Iran against Mossadegh, and they make the after him was the king, not king, but this prince. No, Shah. Yes, Shah, and he was a puppet of the USA. So you see that this example of Iran, which was close to Soviet Union, it say that it is when it is closed, they want to make the reform like in Soviet Union, but this was crushed by USA with force organizing putsch.
Well, yeah, no, you're right about that. I didn't quite think that much about it when I said Iran as an example, but yeah, no, you're correct. But that doesn't necessarily explain why, because Bolivia had the same thing. There was a military guy in Bolivia who did more or less the same things as the guy you talked about in Iran, and he was also stripped from power by the CIA. But for example, in Norway, the Labour Party took a very, very hard stance against communism, against socialist movements in Norway, even though they continued to build the welfare state. For example, it has been revealed that the Norwegian government was keeping surveillance of far left activities during the 80s and 90s, and I'm pretty sure they continued to do it all the way until today. And so so neither, it seems to me, that the Labour Party of Norway, they didn't feel particularly threatened by the Soviet Union to make these concessions to the working class, but they certainly did not sympathize with the Soviet Union, because they were very, or after World War II, they were very hardline anti-communist, very pro-USA. And so, I mean, yeah, it kind of depends on the country. I guess the material conditions of each country change the outcome of each country. Who'd have thought? But yeah, no.
Okay, comrades, could you say the viewers why it's good to watch your channels? What is the best of your movies, and why the people from Poland have to like you?
Well, no one really has to like me. I've always said that the one thing that I've always wanted is to be absolutely hated and despised by my enemies, but loved and cherished by my friends and those who like me. And so it really does not matter to me what enemies I have, because more enemies means more publicity, and more publicity means more people listening in to what I'm saying, regardless if they agree or disagree with that. But I mean, yeah, no, there's no, I don't have that high value of content, but I would say that I mean, my political thing on YouTube is just a hobby, really. So it doesn't matter to me that much who is watching and who isn't watching. But you know, it would be cool to have people who support me, and the quality of my videos certainly has become better over the last few months. If you go back to a video that was posted like I think like 7 or 8 months ago, it's going to be drastically different from the one that I put out recently. For example, Who Are the Elite, which I think is a pretty good video, or Political Ideology Iceberg, which I also think is pretty decent, and so I am improving, but I'm definitely not great. So I mean, yeah, think of me what you will.
Okay, I watched this video about iceberg and ideology,
Yeah,
and
it's not a video to be taken very seriously. It is quite.
uh,
It's supposed to be, it's
yes,
not.
but you okay. So I had a joke because you said about about French Communist parties,
Mm,
and I am sure that before the Trotskyists, which I knew, which one of this organization which collaborate with AMT, they were the member of the French Communist Party. And you said
mhm.
the French Communist Party, you said true about this, that it is nationalist party who wanted to this. But okay, comrade.
Yeah, no, you're right. Actually, the IMT or our French comrades were actually a part of the French Communist Party, but I don't exactly know what happened. But they broke away from that, and then they joined in some I don't know French, but yeah, that orange and blue left-wing party instead.
No, it is. French Communist Party is big, but
Mm,
the people who are ruling this party are very stupid. They
yeah.
don't want to present themselves to the election,
Mm,
and always they want to make the coalition with the Socialist Party or with the
yeah.
Mélenchon and others. And Mélenchon was a guy who was kicked out from the Socialist Party.
Mm,
He created very small party, the Left Party, and
mm,
in 2012, this small left party make coalition with the Communist Party of France. We have 100,000 members. And
mm.
it was the Mélenchon who was the candidate for the election. And after this, man, he have I don't know 50% of something like that. He created his name, his other party, and now he is this party is big, and but it is only because the Communist Party of France they I don't understand this strategy, because a small Trotskyist organization in every election they want to present themselves, and they want to make and Communist Party are always
Mm. Yeah, no,
so
the French Communist Party is dog shit. We could we could talk about how bad the French Communist Party for many hours. It has become completely unrecognizable from a
yes,
communist.
yes, but the fait humanité is great. If you are young and you want to meet many other people who are young, people from leftist, or it is the possibility one time in your life go to the fait humanité, because
Mm,
in one place you can see the leftists from Asia, Africa, America Latin, all these people which in you can only see in internet. You can find there they have stand with their political, but of course it's impossible this speaking, because there are music. Every music you have to shout, and there are people who are drunk, and in the evening the people are peace everywhere, there are vomit everywhere. So after this it started very for disgusting, but in the beginning you go there, you see many red flags, the people from all this. So the better situation is go there, take contacts, and make a conversation with these people outside,
mm.
because inside is very, you can only say hi, and you have to shout, because music is everywhere, and it is. Before it was the music of the leftist revolt, and now it is commercial music. They take the famous group, and people only go there because it's cheap. It's cheap. If you want to if you want to go to the concert of somebody who is famous, I don't know, you have to buy 50 euros from one concert. There you can buy for 20 euros and you have 20 of famous groups. So it is very, very cheap. But it's not, I'm too old for this. Okay, comrade, thank you for conversation. Link to your channel is in the description, and see you.
Yeah.